Hi, it's day 3 of Supaweek, where we're building an end-to-end API-first application using Supabase as the backend and a little bit of OpenAI mixed in for good measure. In day 1, we built out the initial parts of our API. We had a create method using post. We had a get all blogs method. So the app, what it does is it generates a simple blog post using AI based on a prompt, and then stores that in a Supabase database for retrieval later. On day 2, we added some user level permissioning around API keys. And on day 3, we're going to talk about an essential ingredient to you shipping an API to put in the hands of other developers that they can use, and that is developer documentation. So here you can see the day 3 blog post, and talks about from Abdallah here, and it talks about the importance of a developer portal, what should be included in that. And the good news is you get that completely for free inside Zuplo. So if we go back to the project I've been working on over the last few days, you'll notice I was adding and removing routes. Actually, let me just pick the right project. Here it is, the Supaweek day 1. You'll notice I was adding and removing routes to this routes.oas.json file. And it has 2 methods in it, v1 blogs, post, create a blog using AI, and get all blogs. Now, the OAS part of this file actually stands for Open API Specification. So that's because it's formatted, or it's documented using the Open API standard, which is the global standard open source for setting and defining and describing REST APIs. You can actually see the contents of this here. So this is a standard 3.1 version of OpenAPI document with a couple of extensions like Zuplo route here that we use to add the Zuplo goodies. And what's also cool is if you wanted to work with this OpenAPI document externally to change the documentation or add examples or add schemas, and you wanted to use a different tool that specialized in that, like Stoplight, for example, then you can do that. And then you can take the OpenAPI and come back here and import that document. I'll just go part of the way through here. Like, let's imagine we wanted to import this one, and that will actually merge the operations, leave your Zuplo things intact, but update the documentation. So a really great experience if you want to work API first and power your gateway using OpenAPI and your documentation. So yeah, that's a clue there, the documentation. This information in here, this specification, is actually dynamically driving a developer portal that Zuplo hosts and runs for you for free as part of your project. So if I go to the Getting Started tab here, you'll notice it tells me that my gateway is live at this URL, but it also tells me my developer portal is live here at the same URL /docs. So if I click on that, that's going to load up my developer portal that is completely driven by all of the metadata and information that's stored inside Zuplo about your API. So notice it has the get all blogs method. It knows it's protected by API key. It tells you about the header that you need, the authorization header, and that's where your key is going to go. It has some documentation about this creating a blog using AI, some information about the request body, some example responses, an example body. So fully documented, even includes code samples. So that's pretty cool, but we go even further. If you remember, we're using API key authentication with this particular sample. So what we can do is we can use this developer portal to host self-serve API keys so that your customers can sign in and manage their own API keys. So let me show you how that works. We'll go back here. We'll go back to API consumers here in the settings section. And yesterday we added a couple of keys. I'm going to add a new consumer here called test3, and I'm going to specify a manager. That says this is a user that can access and manage this key in my developer portal. Since I'm giving the demo, I'm going to use my email. And if you remember from day 2, we also need to set an org ID on the user. So let's go do that. 120, yeah, a big number like that. Click save. That will create a new identity. And if I now go back to my developer portal here and click sign in, and sign in as josh@mulmorg.com. That was the email josh@zuplo.com. That is the email I was using. Here we go. So I've signed in with that account. You can see here. Into this section here. And here you can see is the test3 key. And notice we obfuscate it so that no one can look over the person's shoulder and see the key. But if I want to reveal it, I can. I can see the full key there. What's cool about these keys is they're actually formatted because we have a partnership with GitHub where we do secret scanning. So if this key gets checked into GitHub, we will get notified immediately. We will revoke the key, we'll notify you, notify your customer, all depending on your settings. I can also manage my keys, like I can roll them, I can change the label as the customer if I don't like test 3, my best key. I can save my change there. And I can roll the keys, and of course I can copy that key. So let's just go and test it and make sure it works. So I'm going to go back over here. Let's go back into here, hit test, and we're going to replace that key with my new key. Click test. That'll take a couple of seconds to run. It's created, and if I now go and do a get all with this key, notice it comes back with org ID 12354 because that was the key I used. And so I just self-served myself an API key, generated a post, and did all of that using the Zuplo developer portal. Of course, it has dark mode, you know, what self-respecting developer wouldn't. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's Supaweek day 3, showing you how to use this. There's one more feature I haven't shown, which is a bit special though, and that is inside the developer portal. If I go to my key here, I can actually view my request logs. So this is going to show me the calls I, as a consumer, an API consumer, have made to this API, and I can see my own history over time. So you can see, there you go, I had 200 calls, and we can actually look at each one. So one was to the a get to the blogs route, and one was a 200 post to the blogs route. That happened from the city of Redmond, which is where I'm based, and there's the timestamps, etc. So completely self-serve experience available, all part of Zuplo.